can't believe it's not my first. It's, and I can't believe what sort of book got to my first, actually. It was a huge shock. Hello peasants, and welcome to my book review for the books I've read in 2023. I'm gonna do this backwards to front. So I read 19 books. I'm going to start with number 19 and work my way down to 1. So before I start, I'm going to just share with you very, very briefly my wonderful, wonderful novella, Once Bitten. Once Bitten is a retelling of Charles Dickens' classic, A Christmas Carol, but written from a vampiric perspective. Vampiric? Is that a word? Vampire? Without further ado, number 19 on my list is The Tempest by Julie Cross. So The Tempest was actually quite enjoyable. I don't tend to read a lot of children's fiction or young adult fiction. I actually thought this was an adult book. Sorry, that sounds wrong. I thought this was a book aimed at adults, should I say. And basically it's about this guy Jackson, I think that's meant to be him there, who discovers that he is a time traveller. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to read you the blurb. Why wouldn't I? Today, Jackson and Holly are in love. Tomorrow, she will lie bleeding in his arms. Yesterday, Jackson must undo it all. Jackson has a secret. He can jump into his own past. But when a shocking event propels him further back in time than he has ever been before, he finds he can't return. Now, Jackson has to find a way to save the girl he loves before they've ever met, and time is not on his side. I really enjoyed this book, but I did get a bit confused in so many places, and I don't know if that's because I'm an idiot, probably, or it's because I think the author was trying to be mysterious and it came across as a bit confusing. I don't read many time traveling books or books about time travel. Having said that, I actually have read quite a few this year and I do enjoy it. I don't know why I never seem to be able to find them. I really enjoyed this book. Again, it's number 19 on my list and I would give it, you know, it was an average read. It was a great read. I'd give it 3 stars. Number 18 on the list is a book called The Coach Trip by Izzy Bromley. I really enjoyed this book. It was a sweet read, a simple read. There wasn't much going on in it. Characters were quite funny. There were funny moments in it, some sweet moments, and it also challenges some misconceptions perhaps we have about aging and how we interact with the elderly. I'm just going to read you the blurb. I'm reading it from Amazon because, again, I read this on my Kindle and my Kindle's very slow, so by the time I get up the blurb for each book that I bought on my ebook, we're going to be here forever, and I don't want that, and I don't think you do either. In this heartwarming story of hope and second chances, Emma and Mel are about to discover that sometimes life is about the journey, not the destination. Classic forgetful Emma has done it again, this time accidentally ruining a Valentine's Day surprise for her best friend. Desperate to make up for it, she promises Mel a birthday trip to Edinburgh, a girls' weekend to end all weekends. But there's just one massive hitch. Emma has already promised her grandmother that she'll go on a coach trip with her to scatter her granddad's ashes in Edinburgh on Mel's birthday weekend. So yeah, you can see the sort of thing it's going to be. Again, it wasn't a very complex book. There was no action in it, no declarations of love. It was just a sweet story about 2 friends, which actually was quite fresh as well, because you don't read many books that focus pejoratively on friendships and female friendships. That I will give another solid 3 out of 5. Easy read, I would recommend. Okay, so my 17th book on the list, counting down, is The Wisteria Tree Cottage by Holly Martin. Now, I have to admit, Holly Martin is definitely a little guilty pleasure of mine. I don't tend to read fluffy romances or things that are overly sweet, the typical easy read romance novel. There's not enough meat in them for me to deal with, but Holly Martin is pretty fun to read. I fell in love with The Secrets of Clover Castle last year, I think, when I was ill with COVID, and since then I have devoured the rest of her books. I actually listened to a lot of these books, and I believe I listened to Wisteria Tree Cottage rather than read it. I think the narration is really, really good. It really helps you to get into the novel. I've never sat down, I don't think, and read a Holly Martin novel. I don't know if that would change the experience a bit. I will read you the blurb. Meadow has only ever loved one man, the very gorgeous Bear Brookfield. Ever since they were children, she's dreamed of marrying him under the green canopy of Wishing Wood. But when a teenage kiss that held such promise was followed by a series of misunderstandings, Meadow lost all hope of a future with Bear. Years later, Meadow and Bear remain best friends despite Meadow marrying and divorcing Bear's brother Heath. And yet she's sure there's no chance there'll be anything more. What Meadow doesn't know is that Bear has only ever loved one woman too. He was heartbroken when Meadow married Heath, certain she chose his brother over him. But there's more to Meadow and Heath's marriage than anyone else knows. So yeah, it was a great read, just a cheerful little number. Definitely, again, 3 out of 5. Like this book and I would recommend. So the 16th? Yeah, so the 16th book is The Handmaid's Secret, the 2. So like there's the Handmaid series by Freida McFadden. I love Freida McFadden. I discovered her this year when I went away on holiday because, you know, psychological thrillers are just so easy to read on holiday. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. I have one particular favourite and they're all pretty good, but I did prefer the first, The Housemaid book, to the second one in the series. Anyway, I'll talk about the second book because it was good. So I'll read you some little snippet here. It's hard to find an employer who doesn't ask too many questions about my past. So I thank my lucky stars that the Garricks miraculously gave me a job cleaning their stunning penthouse with views across the city and preparing fancy meals in their shiny kitchen. I can work here for a while, stay quiet until I get what I want. I did enjoy this. I love the protagonist. I thought she was great. What I really loved about this is it's told from the perspective of someone who doesn't have it easy. You know, a lot of psychological thrillers are taken from the perspective of someone who's a little bit more doughy-eyed, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I really did enjoy The Handmaid's Secret. It's definitely one to read, so again, 3 out of 5, well done. My 15th book on the list is The Push by Claire McGowan. This again is another psychological thriller. I read quite a lot of those this year. It revolves around a group of expecting mothers, well, dads as well, but mostly expecting mothers, and their sort of battles with being pregnant or trying to get pregnant, and essentially it all culminates around one day, which is the baby shower day. So when they all celebrate that they've given birth. However, during the celebration, someone is pushed off a balcony and dies. Or the push, because someone was pushed, but also it's about babies. And I just love name things that work like that. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, it was a really good read, really fun. I found it quite gripping, not as gripping as some psychological thrillers. We had shifts in perspective, which was really fun. I always love like multiple points of view from narration. What I love about some books, this one particularly, was that it did what it said on the tin. It was a psychological thriller. It was really gripping, but the author was also talking about things like infertility and miscarriages and loss and a woman's identity, choosing whether or not to have babies. You know, that sort of stuff didn't get in the way, but it was really interesting to read about that kind of stuff as well. Would again recommend that, another 3 out of 5. Book number 14 is The Locked Door by Freida McFadden. Once again, yes, another psychological thriller, and as I said, I am devouring Freida McFadden and waiting for the 3rd Housemaid to come out. Yeah, this was another great book, another easy read. I don't think it was one of her best, but also somehow like the darkest. I don't know, it just seemed quite dark, which I love, don't get me wrong. Some doors are locked for a reason. While 11-year-old Nora Davis was up in her bedroom doing homework, she had no idea her father was killing women in the basement, until the day the police arrived at their front door. Decades later, Nora's father is spending his life behind bars, and Nora is a successful surgeon with a quiet, solitary existence. Nobody knows her father was a notorious serial killer, and she intends to keep it that way. Then Nora discovers one of her young female patients has been murdered in the same unique and horrific manner that her father used to kill his victims. Somebody knows who Nora is. Somebody wants her to take the fall for this unthinkable crime. But she's not a killer like her father. Police can't pin anything on her as long as they don't look in her basement. So yeah, this was great. Actually, that reminds me a lot about the book. You know, you're reading this book through this person's perspective. I think it was first person, and you're never quite sure if she's telling the truth, or you know there's like some hidden things that you're not too sure about. And it had a really good ending, a really sort of good twist that I didn't see coming. Sometimes you can, but no, I didn't see this one coming. It really played to the idea of the unreliable narrator. A little bit scary. Not even scary, but not a cheerful read. So yeah, but again, 3 out of 5. Well done, Freida. Okay, thank goodness. We're on to number 13. Lucky for some, not for others, but lucky for me because I actually have the physical copy of this book. So this was another charity shop find. I think I went to Ross and White and I found this in a charity shop. And this is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, I know this is actually a really popular novel at the moment. A lot of people on booktube talking about it. I believe Jack Edwards spoke highly of this, but I might have got that wrong. And yeah, this was a good book. I don't tend to read books that are in the current zeitgeist, like, you know, that are really popular, because I don't really like discussing books with people as I read them, because it just kind of ruins that escapist moment for me. However, I did read this and it was really good. There are like two main storytellers here and two main narrators, and it was a fun read, informative, and has opened my eyes a lot to the celebrity world, particularly in Hollywood, you know, years back. I'm just going to read you the synopsis. Reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. From making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to leaving show business in the 80s, and of course the 7 husbands along the way, Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in tragic and irreversible ways. So from the offset, there is a hook, there is mystery in this book. And so this book was quite fun. They had like little, like almost like newspaper clippings in there, in the sort of old-fashioned sense. I just thought it was great. And as someone who has worked in admin and writing and copywriting and worked in an office, the first line tapped into my heart, and also was a brilliant first line. Like from the get-go, it was great. So I'm just gonna read you. It says, "Can you come into my office? I look around at the desks beside me and then back at Frankie, trying to confirm to whom exactly she's talking. I point to myself. Do you mean me? Frankie has very little patience. Yes, Monique, you. That's why I said, Monique, can you come into my office? Sorry, I just heard the first part." And we find out quite soon that Monique is given this opportunity to interview this like famous character from Hollywood's history. She's like, you know, she's an underling, she's starting at this company, she's new to the journalist world, from someone who has kind of worked a little bit in that industry and knows a little bit about it. You know, it was really fun to step into Monique's shoes and kind of experience that absolute mind-blowing experience that she has. The twist is good, not brilliant. I could kind of see it coming. The book was predictable in some ways. I don't want to spoil anything, so if you're listening, just, you know, jump ahead 5 seconds or something. But the fact that Evelyn Hugo was bisexual, or a lesbian, or that she was just queer in general, that was kind of something I gathered quite early on. I don't think that trope is as well, I've said trope, you know, it's not as surprising as it used to be. I've read quite a few of sort of coming out novels surrounding sexuality. So the fact that the book was so obviously focused on the husbands made me question, oh, hang on a second, there's something else here. So yeah, I like this book. It was really good. I don't think it deserved all the hype it got, but it was a great book. Yeah, well done, Taylor Jenkins Reid. I definitely give you a good solid 3 out of 5 stars. Yeah, could recommend. Okay, so the 12th book on my list is By the Horns by Jemma Croft, which is a really fun, I think, novella that I read on my ebook. Yeah, it was great fun. I don't really go for books that are really high fantasy, and don't get me wrong, this isn't high fantasy. We're not talking Lord of the Rings. It's very contemporary fantasy. So it's about a woman who meets a minotaur. I'm just going to read you the synopsis because I think that's the best way for me to describe this. When Joey Silver stumbled into the wrong classroom at night school, she never expected to find love, especially not with a minotaur. This was really interesting. It was a different world from ours, and they had their own sort of laws and customs and social conventions. It was giving fated mates, it was giving found family. I love that it was a dual narration. We heard from her perspective, we heard from his perspective. I really liked her. She was quite a unique protagonist. You know, she I think drives a delivery car for pizza. She's not glamorous in any way. The book talks to her about being plus size, which is great. It also goes a little bit into family dynamics and what it's like bringing someone into your family as such. And yeah, it's funny in places. I will have to warn viewers, it is quite steamy. I was quite surprised by some of the content in there. But it was fun. It was really good fun, and I've not really read many books or novellas, I suppose, like this, although I love my fantasy, so I suppose I kind of have. I enjoyed it. Again, another 3 out of 5 stars. Very quick read, and I believe it's part of her series. It's called the Fantasy Flatmate series. It's book 1. I believe the second one talks about the elf in the book. So I haven't actually got around to reading that one yet. This year for me has been start the first book in a series and don't finish the rest book, other than Freida McFadden. That obviously I did finish. I'm hoping to read the next one soon. Added to my TBR. So yeah, that was great. Well done, Jemma. Loved your work, and I look forward to reading the rest. Book number 11 is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Again, this is another book that's been really popular on booktube this year. It was great. I loved it. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, but yeah, it was funny and witty. It was also very traditionally rom-com. I've always liked books about books, or books about bookworms, or books about writers, and this was, you know, this really hit the nail for me. I'm going to read you the description. Nora is a cutthroat literary agent at the top of her game. Her whole life is books. I get you, Nora. I get you. Charlie is an editor with a gift for creating bestsellers, and he's Nora's worst nemesis. Nora has been through enough breakups to know she's the one men date before finding their happy ever after. To prevent another dating dud, Nora's sister has persuaded her to swap her city desk for a month's holiday in Sunshine Falls. I love the relationship that the narrator has with her sister. We don't really get a lot of books that sort of explore sister relationships, or if we do, they're kind of a troubled relationship, and it was really fun to see these sisters like working out things throughout the book. You know, their lives are changing, and you know, they've always depended quite a lot on each other, and things are changing. So, you know, this book wasn't only a romantic comedy, it was you know, a really fun exploration of sisterly love and commitment. And as a sister myself, having a sister, I recognise myself in a lot of the a lot of the narratives, and could relate quite well. Again, it discusses, you know, how your lives change, but you're trying to hold on to this relationship, or make it grow and not lose the love that you have, or anything like that. I think it's set in the summer, but it definitely has sort of, you know, it's a very cozy read, you know, small town, you know, dusty bookshop, coffee house type vibe. So yeah, it was really fun. So the 10th book on the list is I Will Make You Pay by Teresa Driscall. I hope I have said your name right. This was another great psychological thriller. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm going to read you the description. So every Wednesday, like clockwork, the terror returns. It seems like an ordinary Wednesday until the phone rings. A mysterious caller with a chilling threat. Journalist Alice Henderson hangs up, ready to dismiss it as a hoax against her newspaper. But the next Wednesday, the stalker makes another move, and it becomes clear that this is all about Alice. So again, another psychological thriller. I really liked that it was dual narrative. It might have been multiple, but it was definitely a dual narrative, and I really enjoyed like the hook of this book, the grippiness that every Wednesday this woman is contacted by a stalker, and it was really good at eliciting that dread of something happening that, you know, is kind of come up, but it's frightening anyway. So for anyone who's had anxiety and can see events happening on a horizon, you know, it's not just the event itself that's scary, but the lead up to it. And, you know, the book talked about poverty, relationships, and crime, and some horrific dark stuff. So it was quite a dark read. But it was really gripping. So again, 3 out of 5. Really enjoyed that. I'm going to see what else she's done. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, book number 9, and the books I thoroughly enjoyed this year. And it starts off with The Good Part by Sophie Cousens. I loved The Good Part. It was fun and sensitive and witty and humorous. And really clever. This book is a time slip novel. So again, I said that I had read some time slippy travel novels, and it's about this young narrator who is kind of struggling in life. She doesn't really know what she's doing. You know, you come out of university, or maybe you don't, you finish school, you don't really know what you're doing. She's in her mid-20s, and I think, like most of us, apart from those really blessed few, knew exactly what they were doing in their 20s, and she doesn't. And yeah, it was just fun. So basically, the concept of the novel is she wishes on a wishing machine that she can skip to the good part of her life when she has everything she's reaching for now. So, you know, a husband, or at least a long-term relationship, a good career, a car, a house, you know, all the things that at the moment she simply doesn't have and she's really struggling with. And it's told in such a humorous way. There is actually a quote on the book from someone by Becca Freeman, says, "The perfect read for anyone who has ever felt a little lost in their own life." And I definitely have. We got to see this young woman's perspective as she kind of travelled in time into the body of her 40-year-old self. She doesn't have any memory of the 16 years or however have been since then. I think my maths is wrong on that, so let's just not worry about that. So yeah, it was such a fun read. I can't recommend this book enough. It was easy read, it was funny, it was warm-hearted, wholesome, and it had a really great ending. So yeah, definitely can recommend this. My first 4 out of 5 stars of 2023. The Good Part by Sophie Cousens. Book number 8 is another Freida McFadden, this time The Housemaid. So I think this was the first book of Freida McFadden's I'd read, and I just loved it. It was brilliant. It was it kind of gave, like, I don't know if anyone's ever read Elizabeth Chandler as a teenager and the Dark Secrets series. I suppose it was kind of giving off those vibes, and it was really great. So again, I did enjoy the first book of the series more so than the second. I loved the narrator. I loved that she wasn't this competent, happy character. She was struggling financially and emotionally. I think what drew me to this book, and this is really, really shameful, was I love psychological thrillers. It's the first one I read when I went on holiday. But the thing that really took me in, and this is really bad, is that the surname of the family in this book is Winchester. And, well, your queen, she loves a bit of supernatural. I saw that and I knew it had nothing to do with supernatural, but, you know, it was Winchester, and I just... yeah, okay, what else can I say? So I'll read you the description. "Welcome to the family," Nina Winchester says as I shake her elegant manicured hand. "I smile politely, gazing around the marble hallway. Working here is my last chance to start afresh. I can pretend to be whoever I like, but I'll soon learn from the Winchesters secrets are far more dangerous than my own." So we've got this mystery around the narrator and her past, but we've also got this mystery around this sort of seemingly perfect family. It's kind of giving all that glitters is not gold. You know, you've got this beautiful family with a beautiful house and a beautiful car and a beautiful lifestyle, and this poverty-stricken housemaid comes in, and you know, there's more than what meets the eye. That is true for all families, is it not? Quite dark in places, and you know, quite claustrophobic. I think I read this in like 2 days. It was really, really good. So yeah, Freida, again, thank you for my reads of 2023. Another 4 out of 5, and good cover, really. I'll pop it here. So the 7th book is a physical book that I bought from a charity shop here where I live, and it's called The Mermaid of Black Conch by Monique Roffey. I hope I'm saying the names right. I'm probably not, and I'm really sorry. But yeah, this was a really brilliant book. It's quite short, not quite novella, but certainly not a huge novel. It's a love story as opposed to a romance, so I always like to make people aware of that whenever I recommend books, because there is a difference in that romances have to, by their genre definition, have a happy ending or a happy finale. This doesn't have a happy ending in the traditional sense, although I didn't come away sobbing. So it was really eye-opening and escapist. I'm just going to read you the synopsis. So it says, "Near the island of Black Conch, a fisherman sings to himself while waiting for a catch. But David attracts a sea dweller that he never expected. Isaiah, an innocent young woman cursed by jealous wives to live as a mermaid. When American tourists capture Isaiah, David rescues her and vows to win her trust. Slowly, painfully, she transforms into a woman again. Yet as their love grows, they discover that the world around them is changing and they cannot escape the curse forever." It was giving kind of Pirates of the Caribbean vibe. It was, you know, looking into the colonization of the Caribbean islands. I almost didn't read this book because it opens with some very specific word choices. It's told from the perspective of a native of the islands, and so there's kind of some colloquialisms and things. For anyone who's ever read Wuthering Heights and can't understand the accent as the story starts, and it's kind of off-putting, you do kind of get into it and know what's going on. So yeah, it wasn't like terribly hard to get into, but I wouldn't suggest this one if you're in a reading slump and looking for a reading slump book to get out of. My last book, The Good Part, actually was a book that got me out of a reading slump. Definitely stick with it. I just love that it was talking about a mermaid, and I love sort of mythical things, retellings of mythical things. I mean, if you can't tell, I like retellings. I literally wrote the vampire version of A Christmas Carol for you to read just here. Some of the language in it was just beautiful. Some of the descriptions, I would literally sell some of my hair, well not all of it, but you know, I don't know what I'd do to be able to write like that. I took a lot of photos of some of the paragraph sentences in this book to kind of study for my own writerly needs. It was beautiful and sad. That was my dog squeaking a toy, sorry. Definitely a 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I love this book. Definitely recommend it. So we're getting into the top 6, my favourite books I read this year. This one is another charity shop buy, and this is like, you know, definitely within the genre I like to write and read. The Angel's Blood, the first book of the Angel series by Nalini Singh. I hope that's how you say your name. I'm sorry if it's not, but anyway, this book was brilliant. I loved it. It was vampires, it was sexy, it was romance, it was dramatic, it was kick-ass heroine, it was just great, and it had really funny moments. But I'll read you the description and see if it's something you can sink your teeth into. Oh no, actually, I forgot to mention it's not vampires. It's actually about angels. Obviously, it's called Angel's Blood. There are vampires in it, and I think if I see a cover like this and it's kind of red and there's like a blood hanging down it, I just go vampire because I write vampire and I read a lot of vampire fiction. Oh, I've read it, how stupid. But no, it does have vampires in it. I think it has werewolves as well, but it's really the first book that I read about angels, and so it was kind of new to me, and I love the fantasy genre. You've got these sort of staples of the fantasy genre: vampires, werewolves and angels, and I never read a fiction about angels, and it was fascinating. Very romantic. Sorry, this is my dogs just come in to say hello. Hi baby. I know I love you. It was great, it was fun, it was romantic, action-packed. It was really good. Once again, this was something that a series I started, and I believe I've got the second book upstairs, so I need to read that. But I think in the time between ordering the second book, I started another book, and I did that classic thing where I started a book in one series and then read a totally different book and intend to go back to the second one in the series and just didn't get there. I don't know if anyone else does this. I didn't have this problem when I was younger. It seems to be something I have developed recently. So if anyone else has that problem, let me know. It'd be great to hear from someone else about that. Definitely for the Twilight out there, the Vampire Diary lovers. So on to number 5. Book number 5 is another Freida McFadden, and I loved this book. When I started to read it, I actually thought it wasn't that great, and I struggled to get into it a little bit, but my gosh, I'm glad I stuck through. This was a really great psychological thriller, and it was oddly cozy because it kind of surrounds this motel and this couple. Well, actually, it starts off with a woman who's killed her husband and is running away, and so you know, I couldn't really relate to her. I think she was a little bit older. You know, her husband was abusive, and I don't necessarily need to relate to the character to get into it, but it was a bit of a barrier. Anyway, I continued to read, and it was great, and I love the story, the plot twist in this. You get to like the middle of the book, and I'm not going to tell you who, I don't want to spoil it, but you kind of start a new narrative from a different character in the book. And it was brilliant. What I really enjoyed about this book is that it talked a little bit about chronic illness and someone who suffers from a chronic illness. I don't think that's explored a lot in literature, or at least not one that I've seen a lot, and particularly that I know someone very close to me who has a chronic health condition. It's not represented a lot in the media, so this was really refreshing, and really gave a little insight into what that is like for a person living with it, and also for a person looking after the person who has the chronic illness. I should probably read a little bit of the description, but basically it starts off with a woman who has killed her husband and goes on the run. And it's told in multiple points of view. So we get the woman who's killed her husband, she runs off. Then we get her sister's perspective, trying to find her sister. Later on in the book, again, we get that other narrative coming along. It was definitely heartwarming towards the end, but it was a great read. It was gripping. I loved the ending. I think more than any of her books, this was the book that I was really rooting for the characters, and I was so desperate to know that the two I mean, you'll read it, but like the two main kind of characters towards the end were good and redeemable. Literally at the very, very end, there is another little plot twist which I didn't see coming. I love this book. I'm tempted to give it 5 out of 5 stars. You know what I'm going to? I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. Well done, Freida McFadden. Love this book. Number 4 on my list of reads for 2023 is Cursed, which is actually a short story anthology I found on Kindle, which I have totally fallen in love with and thoroughly enjoyed reading. So it's a collection of stories from various authors, from Neil Gaiman, Christina Henry, Charlie Jane Anders, and it's a collection of fairy tales or retellings of fairy tales or unique twists to fairy tales, and some original stories that are kind of fairy tale-ish, but the whole thing revolves around a curse, or characters that have been through a curse or have a curse or have wished for the wrong thing. And it was brilliant. Some of the short stories I enjoyed more than others. I loved this. It really fed me the fairy tale, the dark fairy tale that I crave so much. It was kind of once upon a timey in a way. I don't know if you've ever read Angela Carter's work, The Bloody Chamber, but it was giving those sort of vibes. It was like subverting a lot of traditional fairy tale themes, and really enjoyable, really rich and interesting. There were stories about ghosts, there were stories about mythical legends I'd never heard of, but now I know a bit about. There was a story about nymphs. And I think also the fact that it was a short story collection, I don't really read a lot of those. It was really quite nice to be able to read one a night before I went to sleep, and some of the stories really have stayed with me, so I can definitely recommend this if you are a fairy tale fan, if you like things slightly dark. This is definitely a read for you. This is a solid 5 out of 5. I love this, and a little bit sad that I've finished it. Okay, so yeah, on to number 3. Is my dog again, sorry. Okay, so she's just here for some cuddles. Okay, so number 3 on my list, and actually it's the book I finished most recently. I finished it a couple of nights ago and totally blew my socks off. It was actually a book that I was given by a relative, and I didn't really think much of it. They knew I was a reader, and I kind of looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. It's called The Ghost Tree by Barbara Erskine. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Stupidly, it actually says in the book how you pronounce the name. Because actually what's really cool about this book and almost unique is, I mean, I'd never heard of her before, but Barbara Erskine is quite a popular writer, and she's written a load of novels, and this is one of them. Actually focuses quite largely on a true historical character, or actually a great relative of the author, so someone who was real and who she was fascinated by, and kind of wrote the story around. And what I just love about this is that when I picked it up, I had no realization that it was time travel-y, because it doesn't look like it. It kind of looks, you know, Philippa Gregory, a bit of historical fiction. That's kind of the thing it looks like. And so I didn't have high hopes for this, but I was blown out of water. I loved it. I'm going to read you the back of it. A hidden diary, a dangerous enemy, 5 generations of secrets. Left rootless by the death of her estranged father, Ruth must tackle the daunting task of sorting through his possessions. Amid the dust of his old life, she discovers a diary written by her ancestor Thomas. Soon, Ruth is pulled into a story she can't escape. Thomas is a boy with a peculiar gift who takes an extraordinary path to power. But Ruth has opened a dangerous door to the past, and an uninvited ghost is about to walk through it. There are ghosts in everyone's pasts, secrets in everyone's history. So yeah, it talks about generational trauma. It was a really easy read. It's quite a thick book, but it didn't feel thick. Like, it did take me a while to get through it, but it wasn't a slog by any stretch. The only slight criticism I have of this book, that was slightly disappointing, was the ending. And I'm not to say that it had a bad ending, but it kind of felt like the book was leading to something big, like some big ending. And it didn't quite get there. And I think maybe the reason why is because the author was basing a lot of her story on real life, on this great however many times great grand. I don't know if she kind of got trapped in not knowing how to finish the story because she wanted to remain true to some of the truth in it. It was building up to, I think, what I thought was the main narrator, Ruth, discovering that she has the same power that her great grandfather had, that she could see ghosts, which is kind of, the theme of the novel, the ghostry. She spends most of the novel not believing in any of the things that she's seeing or reading about. So she's got her feet firmly rooted in reality, which is great. It creates a sort of conflict there, which is wonderful. I just think towards the end I was expecting her to, I don't know, I wasn't expecting some huge thing, but I really was craving that total recognition that all these things she was seeing was real and existed, that whatever she had learned about, that was how she defeated the villain, the enemy. But it kind of wasn't like that. I was a bit disappointed in that the villain, in a way, was kind of got out of the way in a very, it felt, convenient fashion. It could be as well that towards the end of the book, I kind of, like when you get to those final, like the final home stretch of the book and you just can't put it down, it's like it's coming up to the big reveal, blah blah blah. I think what happened is I had a few days between those moments where I wasn't like reading a lot of it in any given day. I was just reading bits here and there, so it must have lost that gravitas, the rumblings of the climax. Anyway, but otherwise, yeah, I just can't recommend this enough. I feel bad for not thinking this would be very good. I would definitely like to try some of her other books. Definitely recommend. So the second to last book, the second to first book, the book that got second place, is a book called The Last Vampire by Christopher Pike. So this was another one I picked up at a charity shop and I loved it. It's been probably the best charity shop find I have had in my life. So the book is set, I don't know when the book is set, but it was written I think in the mid-90s, late 90s, and it follows a vampire girl, a woman protagonist, called Alyssa Pern. It's all about her being the last vampire, and she soon comes to realise that she's not the last vampire. Surprise, surprise. All these attacks are happening and she's trying to work out why. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. I've never really quite read a book like it. Had a really interesting perspective because it was told through this this vampire's narration, and she's like something like almost 2,000 years old or something daft, so she has seen so much history. And what was really fun was that she would have chapters in the present day when she's trying to solve these mysteries and these murders happening, and she's trying to do all these things. But it also then, she has moments where she thinks back and it talks about her time, I don't want to say in India, but certainly around that part of the world when she was a human, and how she came to be a vampire and came to be the last vampire. And it talks about religion and this significant figure of the past and how he interacted with humans and vampires. And so if you are a lover of vampire books, if you had your Twilight phase and are kind of still in it, then this is definitely a recommendation. If you love vampires and a bit of history, and It was really gripping and bloody and fun, and it was quite unique. I have read quite a lot of young adult books in this genre, a lot of new adult books, a lot of adult books. You know, Amazon is littered with vampire books, vampire novellas. So I read my fair few, and this one was absolutely unique in them. It was meaty, you know. A lot of the books that I read online, in, you know, Kindle Vella or whatever you call it, you know, a lot of the novellas I read are great, they're fun, they're quick reads, but this book had some heft, it had some depth, it was classy. The protagonist was well crafted, all the characters were well crafted. I can't believe it's not my first. It's and I can't believe what sort of book got to my first, actually. It was a huge shock. Okay guys, if you've got through this far in the video, I just want to say thank you so much. This is obviously my first video. I think I will probably need to do a lot of editing on this, so hopefully it's not too long. So my final best book this year, and it was as much of a surprise to me as it may be to some of you, particularly those who know me, is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I can't believe I've said those words. Yeah, I don't read this sort of book. I never read this sort of book. And again, it was one that I picked up from a charity shop because I recognised the cover from YouTube, and it was like £1 maybe, £1.50. And I do love some family drama, you know, I like that sort of thing, but this was, I can't tell you, it was a phenomenal book. It was beautiful and sad, and it had so much to say about generational trauma, abuse, domestic abuse and violence, poverty, finding your place in the world. The moral, I suppose, of this story really spoke to me. Yeah, I don't want to give away too much. I also know there's a second book out, which I haven't read and refuse to read in case it ruins the ending of this one. And I can't do it. I just can't do it. For me, this is a single story, and it will remain a single story for all my days. I'm sure you must have heard it, but I'm going to just quickly read out the description. Lily hasn't always had it easy, but that never stopped her from working hard for the life she wants. She's come a long way from the small town in Maine where she grew up. She graduated from college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. So when she feels a spark with a gorgeous neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid, everything in Lily's life suddenly seems almost too good to be true. Ryle is assertive, stubborn, and maybe even a little arrogant. He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily. But Ryle's complete aversion to relationships is disturbing. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas Corrigan, her first love and a link to the past she left behind. He was her kindred spirit and protector. When Atlas suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. With this bold and deeply personal novel, Colleen Hoover delivers a heart-wrenching story that breaks exciting new ground for her as a writer. It Ends With Us is an unforgettable tale of love that comes at the ultimate price. It really spoke to me, and the decision that the protagonist made at the end. You've got to read it. You just have to read this one. And again, I can't believe that this bright pink, it looks like a chick flick. I actually was talking to my sister-in-law. She thought it was a chick flick as she was reading it. I was saying it's not a chick flick. Then she read it and agreed that it's not a chick flick, but it looks kind of like a chick flick from first looking, and I think that's really clever because it's only once you get to read the book and you kind of study the artwork and this broken orchid and things that you know a bit more. Atlas, I wish you were real. You're great. And I don't want to say book boyfriend material, but yeah, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say book boyfriend material. For those of you that like a good book boyfriend, this is one to go for. So yeah. Okay, so this has taken me a long time to get through. I can't believe how long it took me to rank the books, and I can't believe how long it took me to film this. I think for you, it's hopefully not going to be any more than 20 minutes. I really hope it isn't. Thank you once again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed my video. Once again, this video comes with the hope of you reading my novella, which is Once Bitten, A Christmas Carol Story by Rebecca Rain. So yeah, follow the link below for my Amazon page where you can download that or buy it as a paperback copy. If you love Christmas and vampires and tales of women kicking ass, then yeah, this one's for you. So enjoy. Anyway, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you next time. Godspeed.